Welcome back to Established Dominance Fantasy Football. I'm your host, Ding, and the goal of this podcast is to set you up for success drafting wide receivers this year. We'll talk news, injuries, draft strategy, and look at my top 20 draft picks at the wide receiver position. And if you enjoy this podcast, please hit the like and subscribe buttons, and feel free to follow us on X. Okay, we'll kick it off with news and injuries. We're going to focus on news that impacts our top 20 today. So let's jump in. Tyreek Hill got paid. St. Brown got paid. A.J. Brown got paid. I'm sensing a trend here. Nico Collins got paid. DJ Moore got paid. Mike Evans got paid. Devonta Smith got paid. Wait, I'm not getting paid. I don't, all right, moving on. Justin Jefferson got paid. And then Waddle, he got paid, but he's got an injury, and they're not really talking about it, so that doesn't help. All right, who didn't get paid? CeeDee Lamb. He didn't get paid. And it's rumored that he's at home right now taking breakdancing lessons from the Australian Olympic representative. Too soon? Who else didn't get paid? Jamar Chase didn't get paid. He didn't even show up to practice today. Now, we're not sure if he's hurt or if this is the start of some sort of official holdout, but continue to monitor. Puka Nacua busted bursa. Say that 5 times fast. But coach says he'll be ready for week 1. Garrett Wilson, he's 3 weeks removed from his cramping. No more comments there. Devontae Adams is back after the birth of his son. Congratulations. Coach says Cooper Kupp is back at full strength. That's a good thing. Pittman is past his knee issue and playing preseason. Debo lost weight. And Ayuk might get his wish and get his trade to Pittsburgh. It looks all but complete. On a side note, if he does go to Pittsburgh, I think this makes Najee Harris a stronger draft pick. Now you're caught up. Okay, let's talk draft strategy. Now, like we discussed in the running back episodes, there are 3 general strategies, though now they apply to wide receivers. There's the 0 wide receiver approach, a balanced approach, and heavy wide receiver approach. For 0 wide receivers, I don't recommend this past the second round due to the extreme drop-off from rounds 1 and 2 to 3 in the wide receiver category. Most leagues only start 1 or 2 running backs, but start 3 wide receivers. So if you're drafting backup running backs in the 3rd round when you could be grabbing starting wide receivers, that's going to hurt your team. Now, if you want to try it, I recommend it from position 1, 4, or 5, but you really need to get a wide receiver in the 4th round. And I only really recommend this in best ball leagues. Okay, the balanced approach, it can work from any position. That's fairly normal, and a lot of people use it. You can be successful. Last, the heavy wide receiver. This has become more popular over the years due to injuries with starting running backs and the league's transition to a more friendlier scoring through air power. So I think this could have some success this season, especially from the middle to late positions. Example, in the current ADP right now, you could actually get St. Brown, Devontae Adams, and Debo in the first 3 rounds. And then you could find some running back value after that. That's a pretty good starting 3. Just like in running backs, I'm still a big believer in potential and opportunity, aside from all the metrics. And 2 of the biggest contributors to opportunity are the quarterback and the supporting wide receiver cast. Alpha receivers, like the top 20, rarely have any other alpha receivers on the team. There are a couple of exceptions. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, great example. And those guys also have quarterbacks and coaches who want to throw the ball often. Now, some red flags that I consider when I'm drafting wide receivers are the team's potential to win games, both early and late in the season, whether there is a predictable quarterback change midseason coming up, and if there's tendencies to be leading or trailing mid-game. Okay, now what do I mean by all that? Well, first, teams that don't have any hope of making the playoffs tend to rest and protect their starters at the end of the season, or even in-game when they know they can't win. On the flip side, teams who have their season locked up will sit their key players to protect them for the playoffs. Quarterback changes mid-season also throw off timing with receivers and can create floor weeks at the beginning of the transition, not to mention that the new quarterback may favor a different wide receiver. Last, if a team will most likely be behind in each game due to a lack of offensive talent, well, they may be more willing to favor the pass as the game goes on, and that could create an opportunity for late scoring. Now, these red flags may not necessarily impact who I choose in early rounds, but they often play a role when I'm looking to fill up my wide receiver 2 and 3 positions on my bench. Most drafts also have a deep enough bench where you don't have to worry about deconflicting bye weeks for your first 2 to 3 wide receivers. But this will become more of a factor in my follow-on podcast when you fill out your remaining bench. For now, keep in mind that many of the wide receivers in the top 20 share bye weeks 5, 6, and 12. It's possible to come out with 2 of them in the first 3 rounds that share these weeks. One last thought on draft strategy, not only for wide receivers, but also running backs, tight ends, and other categories. If you have a player that is in your top 20 that most people don't think belong there and tend to draft much later, then grab another person in your top 20 and be patient to draft that player closer to their ADP. Be careful not to get sniped by someone who thinks the same as you. But big picture bottom line, grab the player you want when it feels right and go with your gut. Now let's take a look at draft trends in ADP. The top 20 receivers are coming off the board before the middle of round 3, so keep that in mind. In round 1, you have Lamb, Hill, Chase, St. Brown, Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, and Nacua going off in that order. And then as you turn into round 2, it's Harrison, London, Olave, Adams, Collins, Pittman, and Waddle. And then finally, in round 3, Ayuk, Moore, Evans, Kupp, Neighbors, and then Samuel, rounding out the top 20. Speaking of top 20, it's time to get to mine. As always, we'll start with the assumptions first. Players are going to be available for at least 16 games. I can't predict injuries. We'll use PPR scoring. If you're in a half-point PPR or a non-PPR league, I'll try to highlight any adjustments to those. And then opportunities of potential are still the key to my list. But now I'm also looking at quarterback impact, team success, and the supporting cast. Here we go. At number 1, I have Tyreek Hill. If he can remain healthy, which I think he can put up almost the exact same numbers as he did last year, which was about 377 points in a PPR league. 171 targets, 13 receiving touchdowns, and almost 1,800 yards receiving. That is a monster year, and only CeeDee Lamb beat him. I think he can repeat that. At number 2, I have CeeDee Lamb. Now, there's a danger here. He's still holding out, breakdancing with Australia, and we just don't know if he's going to come back on time. And we went through that news where I basically listed 14 top 20 wide receivers who all got paid, and he didn't get paid. And he was the number 1 wide receiver last year. He had 181 targets. That team is committed to throwing the ball. 14 touchdowns. Now, his strength of schedule is going to get worse dramatically, and he's still in holdout. So there's a couple things going against him. I honestly think he's going to get paid. Jerry Jones is rich. He's going to pay the guy, and he's going to play. The question is how deep is he willing to take it? Week 1, week 2, unknown. I still have him here at the number 2 spot, but you really need to monitor this guy, especially if he continues to hold out. I hope he doesn't, but it's possible. At the number 3 spot, I have St. Brown. Now, again, I'm a Detroit fan. I'm throwing it out there. But last year, he finished number 3. He had 331 points. It was a huge year. 10 touchdowns. Now, his strength of schedule is going to get worse. But he really doesn't have another alpha receiver on the team. Jameson Williams, he's got talent, but he's no St. Brown. And they love to throw the ball. And Gibbs, right now, is kind of their PPR back. He's hurt, and we're not sure for how long. So that could translate into more targets for St. Brown. I think he has a solid year. He could actually push for number 1. Now, if you're following my Twitter, you saw that I put out a post a couple of days ago. Statistically, in the last 30 years, only 3 wide receivers have ever gone back to back as number one or back to back as 1 and 2. And that was in 94 95, Jerry Rice, 2014 2015, Antonio Brown, and then 2020 2021 with Davante Adams. And he was the only one who went 1-2. It's not very often. So, as much as I love Hill and CeeDee Lamb in the 1 and 2 spot, it's very possible that they're both not there at the end of the season. So St. Brown could be that guy. At number 4, I have A.J. Brown. Now, I'm looking for him to increase the number of receiving touchdowns that he has. He only had 7 last year, and he's got an easy schedule. He has another good wide receiver on his team with him in Devonta Smith. I don't think he's an alpha like A.J. Brown is, but they do spread the ball. So I'm just hoping that A.J. gets a few more touchdowns, and he had 291 points last year. That'll pop him into the low 300s, and that'll put him at a solid number 4. At number 5, I have Jamar Chase. Now, he's a contract holdout right now, or maybe he's hurt. We don't know what he's doing. He could be in breakdancing class. I don't really know. But he has a lot of potential with Mixon gone to pick up some extra targets. And he only had 7 touchdowns last year. So I could see some touchdown upside there. Also, his strength of schedule radically changed for the better. They were the worst schedule last year, and they're sporting the 6th best this year. Again, it comes down to that contract. Is he going to get paid? They need him. There's no doubt. But I don't know if since he's in a position to do that. We'll see. Before we move on, I want to make sure I catch up. There is not a single ranking in the top 5 that I would change if I was in a non-PPR league. At the number 6 position, I have Garrett Wilson. Now, this is a real potential and opportunity pick. He's never played with Aaron Rodgers during the real season. 2 snaps doesn't count last year, sorry. He put up 1,000 yards with, let's face it, terrible quarterbacking, and he had 168 targets. Now, he only caught 95 of those, and I'm guessing the 70 he didn't catch were uncatchable, and he only had 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, there is significant room for improvement, and we know that if A-Rod latches onto a wide receiver like Davante Adams, he can make him a superstar. Now, Garrett Wilson is not Davante Adams. That's for sure. But I could easily see him going from 3 touchdowns to 10 touchdowns and going from 1,000 yards to 1,200 yards. And their schedule is wicked easy. They have the 4th easiest schedule this year. So Garrett Wilson could easily pop up to the number 6 position. Now, he may not finish here, but the potential and the opportunity are there. At number 7, I have Michael Pittman. Lots of potential here to improve from last season. He only had 4 touchdowns, and he has a wicked easy schedule. Now, Richardson's coming back. The kid's got talent. I'm hoping that he feeds the alpha. All right, so I'm looking for more targets, more catches, and especially more touchdowns. If he doubles his touchdown output, he's easily a number 7. At 8, I have Puka Nacua. Now, I'm a little bit worried about this pick because he busted bursa, say it 5 times fast. And I really don't know exactly how his knee is doing. I know coach says he's ready for week 1. I hear that. And the other risk in this one is Cooper Kupp is healthy. And if you do a side-by-side comparison of when Cooper Kupp and Nacua both played in the same games, they bring each other down and they share too much. The times when Nacua was really dominant last year is when Kupp wasn't there or he was hurt and he was still playing through it. So I'm not really sure that Nacua can match what he did last year. And last year, he finished number 4, almost 300 points. I see him taking a step back in yardage and targets, but his touchdowns of 6 last year, that's about right. I have him at 8. At number 9, I have Davante Adams. It's a tough one here. The guy is basically matchup proof from the standpoint of if you give him a terrible quarterback, he'll still get 175 targets and probably catch 100 balls. It really comes down to the number of touchdowns he's going to catch. I'm guessing Vegas is behind a lot. They're going to feed him as much as possible, and he's going to match his 8 touchdown output. In fact, I think he matches his output almost within 5 points. I'm not going to put any money on that, but he put up 265 points last year, was the number 10 overall. I have him at number 9. Maybe he'll get lucky and go to 10 targets, but his schedule is tougher. I think he gets the same amount of targets. I just hope they're quality throws that he has a better chance of catching. Okay, number 10, I have Drake London. And full transparency, I don't like this pick. I'm not a Drake London fan. I don't really see him as an alpha, but his opportunity and potential are huge. He's catching from a new quarterback, and he's the alpha on the team. I don't really put him in the same category as Devontae Adams, Nakua, and those guys, but he has a tremendous opportunity. And he only caught 2 touchdowns last year. I'm guessing he triples that and gets to at least 6, maybe even 7. And that puts him at a solid 10. In drafting, I'm not sure I'm going to pick this guy. I look at him and I think I just want to move on to the next guy in my list. And London is definitely a candidate to drop down. I'd consider dropping him all the way down to 14 in a non-PPR league and adjusting everyone up 1. Regardless of format, I'm more than likely going to just skip him and move on to the next guy in my list. And that's Justin Jefferson at number 11. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, bro, Jefferson at 11, what's wrong with you? And they're going to point to the fact that he only played 10 games last year and still put up 200 points. That's a monster season. I mean, for only 10 games, that's incredible. He only had 5 receiving touchdowns. My problem is his quarterback, Darnold. Now, if you take a look at Darnold's history, it's not great. I mean, the last couple of full seasons he played as a starter, 2,500 yards passing, 25 touchdowns, double-digit interceptions. And the dude coughs the ball up so much. He had like 11 fumbles one year as a starter. That's terrible. I mean, if he can't protect the ball and he can't get it to his alpha, that's a problem. So, yeah, I have Jefferson at 11. I hope he's healthy. We're assuming 16 games, right? So if he is healthy and he throws him 10 touchdowns or maybe 8 touchdowns, okay. Yeah, that's a solid 11. At 12, I have Deebo Samuel. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, wait, hold on. Where did Brandon Ayuk go? Well, I'm assuming the Pittsburgh trade is going to go through. And that drops Ayuk's value and inflates Deebo's value. And looking at Deebo, they run the ball with him. He had 5 rushing touchdowns last year. They threw him 89 balls, and he caught 60 of them. With Ayuk gone, I see that popping 30 more catches. Maybe he even goes from 7 receiving touchdowns to 8 or 9. This is a solid number 12 finish. At 13, I've got DJ Moore, and I'm uncomfortable with this because even though I know he's talented, he has a rookie quarterback. And the guy keeps having rookie quarterbacks over the years, and I feel bad for him. I mean, he's uber talented. Caught 8 touchdowns last year, different quarterback, obviously. 136 targets. He's the alpha, and he's got the talent. What's going in his favor is he does have a good rookie quarterback, and their strength of schedule is the 3rd easiest in the NFL. Last year, he finishes number 6. I don't think it's going to be as high this year. I'm going to put him at 13. At 14, I have Mike Evans. As far as his season is concerned, I see him putting up roughly the same numbers, but last year he had 13 touchdowns. That's a lot. I think he's going to have some regression there. I think maybe he gets 10, maybe even 9 touchdowns. And that drops him to number 14. At 15, I have Olave. and I am not happy with this pick at all. I don't really trust Derek Carr. I know he had 138 targets last year, 5 touchdowns, 1,100 yards. Those are pretty good numbers, but I don't think that changes at all. And that means he's at 15. At 16, I have Nico Collins. Now, he finished 12th last year, and he had a monster season by all stretch. I mean, 1,300 yards, 8 touchdowns, 109 targets. That's a really solid year. But Diggs coming to the team means more of a timeshare. And while I would say Nico is like a sub-alpha, Diggs is an alpha outside of his prime. I don't know which one's going to show up, to be honest. But I have them both in the top 20, and you'll see that very soon. I have Nico at 16 simply because I think his yards pull back. But 8 touchdowns is well within the realm of possibility. And CJ Stroud, I mean, he loves to throw the ball. So the opportunity is there. It's the right environment for wide receivers. At 17, I have Cooper Kupp. Now, I think a lot of people are going to think this is a little bit higher than he should be. But he's healthy. I know he's older. But he only played 12 games last year. If he could give us 16 games, he'll get 120 targets, probably catch 80 of those, and give us 8 touchdowns. That's a number 17 finish. Again, it's all about his health. And if you're feeling a little bit, wary of his health, that's going to be an issue. At number 18, I have Marvin Harrison. This is a reach. I don't like putting wide receivers that are rookies in the top 20. But there's really no one else on the team. And Kyler Murray just loves to throw the ball without accuracy. I said that out loud. But he has a real opportunity to dominate. And there's no one else on the team. So that's why I have him at 18. At 19, here's where I have Diggs. I still think he's a sub-alpha, and he's joining Nico, and he's also joining Tank Dell. But there's enough targets for everyone. I'd like to see Diggs get as many touchdowns as he did last year, which is 8. I'm not sure he gets that. And he had a number 9 finish last year. So I see him dropping in targets, dropping in catches, dropping in yards, and dropping in touchdowns. So across the board, he's pulling back, but not enough to pull him outside the top 20. And then finally at 20, and I struggled over this, I have to be honest with you, I'm going with Devonta Smith. He had a great season last year, caught 7 touchdowns. They have an easy schedule, over 1,000 yards. I think there's enough targets to go around in Philly to feed both Devonta Smith as well as A.J. Brown. But I think A.J. Brown gets more of the touchdowns. And that's how I see the top 20. For reference, everyone in the bottom 10 of our top 20 is probably good for 1,200 yards and 8 to 10 touchdowns. So I don't see any real change if you're in a PPR or a non-PPR league. There you have it. You're off to a solid start in the draft, and we'll look to help you fill out the rest of your bench in our next episode on wide receivers. Keep in mind that these rankings can change quickly due to injuries and other events, so keep your eye out. Before we sign off, I want to recognize our men and women in uniform who protect the freedoms we hold dear. Thank you for your service and sacrifice. And finally, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and follow us on X, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, so you can stay up to date on our latest content. Next episode, we'll expand our wide receiver coverage and help fill out your bench. And until then, remember, established dominance isn't just a catchphrase. It's a commitment. Are you ready?